Welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot, a weekly vodcast broadcast live from a secret and undisclosed location deep behind enemy lines in Denver, Colorado. Here we speak the truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God. And now, without further ado, our host and co-host, Nick Russo and Hugo Chavez Ray. Give it up for Nick and Hugo.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Hispanic Patriot podcast. Before we get started with the show tonight, please take a moment and click the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support will help our show grow, and also, if you are so inclined, you can contribute financially to our cause on our website displayed during our broadcast. Every donation, large or small, is sincerely appreciated and helps us deliver our important message. Again, thank you for watching, and here we go. Tonight, we have a very important guest, Dagny Van Der Jagt. She is a candidate for district attorney in the newly formed 23rd Judicial District. So stay tuned for an informative interview with Dagny following our introduction to the show and a couple of topics that we want to cover. But before we begin our interview with our candidate, we do have some important news to touch upon. President Donald Trump secured another primary victory in Pennsylvania yesterday. He won by a resounding 83.5% to 16.5%. But guess what the dishonest and biased media's take was? Quote, Donald Trump suffers huge vote against him in Pennsylvania. And the other one, Donald Trump struggles to garner support from moderate and independent voters. I kid you not. You can't make this stuff up, folks. This is what they chose to focus upon. And right on cue, the disgruntled turncoat Anthony Scaramucci, not to be confused with the Queen song Scaramucci, Scaramucci, Trump's former White House communications director said, quote, Trump has no shot to win the presidency. Write it down and study it. And if you are with him, cry, unquote. Okay, Tony, we
Cry from
will.
laughter? I mean, I guess we could do that.
We will, Tony. And then when Trump wins in a landslide, we will call you and ask you how you like your crow. On the local front, folks, this is something really interesting. Democrats are more emboldened than ever. We now hear that the Democrats in the state house have given Republicans a list of words they cannot say in immigration debates. What? Are you kidding me? That will fly over like a lead balloon.
That would be my first question is, or what? Yeah, what will happen if we use the magic words? You know, it's ridiculous.
The list provided to House Republicans includes terms not to use, such as illegal, alien, invaders, interloper, squatter, and fresh off the boat. And it recommends instead using terms like migrant, immigrant, and new arrivals. The Democrats have lost their ever-loving minds, folks. I mean, this is beyond the pale. I don't know.
Well, and worse is that they want to control your mind. I mean, in the book 1984, the biggest point is you control thought by controlling language. When you speak, you have to think about what you're saying. So if they're restricting your speech, they're really restricting your thoughts. And that's just completely unacceptable. Thoughts are meant to be free.
Yep. So on Saturday, Representative Ron Weinberg, Republican from Loveland, spoke of his own experience as an immigrant, labeling himself as an illegal alien, during a discussion on House Bill 1280, which seeks to create a grant program for organizations to provide services for immigrants. I say illegal immigrants. During the debate, Representative Kyle Brown, Democrat from Louisville, who served as a debate chair, intervened and informed him that members are not allowed to use that term, even when referring to their own personal experiences. Brown instead suggested using other terms such as undocumented immigrant, arguing that calling a person illegal can be hurtful and offensive.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
Let me
So
add also truthful. Uh,
yeah.
Weinberg's colleague, Representative Gabe Evans, whom we met up at an event up in northern Colorado, he's a Republican from Hudson, faced a similar rebuke for using the term illegal immigrants. Representative Anthony Hartsook, who's a friend of mine, Republican from Parker, also drew the gavel over what the majority believed to be an insinuation that the presence of immigrants unlawfully staying in the country could lead to a terrorist attack similar to September 11th. To which I say, if the shoe fits.
Yep.
On Monday, Minority Leader Rose Pugliese, I hope I pronounced that right, Pugliese, uh, she's a Republican from Colorado Springs, said Republicans were shut down when using certain words, even though media organizations have used them or they are found in federal statutes. Go figure. We are provided by House leadership a list of words that are offensive to the majority around illegal immigration, unquote, Pugliese said. Today, we stand together to say that the minority being silenced and censored in this chamber is against the values we hold dear as Americans and as Coloradans, she said. This isn't the first time we've been up here advocating for our voices to be heard. Pugliese acknowledged that illegal immigration is a touchy subject, but argued that having difficult conversations is part of their duty as legislators. The voters of Colorado want us to have these uncomfortable conversations, she said. She noted a statewide poll earlier this month which showed illegal immigration to be the paramount issue for Colorado voters. Roughly 2 in 3 view the unprecedented influx as a major problem lawmakers should address. Homelessness hit the number 2 spot. The founding of this country was based on hard conversations. Free speech is free speech for all of us in this chamber, she said. Bravo.
Very much so.
Stay tuned, folks. This one is certain to heat up as we approach the merciful end of the 2024 legislative session next month. Now, without further ado, we are honored to have as our special guest tonight Dagny Van Der Jagt, candidate for district attorney in the newly created 23rd Judicial District. And as an introduction, Dagny Van Der Jagt is a managing partner of the law firm Starzinski Van Der Jagt, PC, which currently serves clients in the Castle Rock area of Colorado and beyond. Mrs. Van Der Jagt's law practice focuses on representing business owners, executives, doctors, and other high-profile clients in legal matters during investigations and high-risk license audits against state and federal government agencies. Ms. Van Der Jagt also represents investors in complex commercial and litigation matters. Her areas of practice includes general business matters, real estate transactional law, wills, trusts, and estate planning, and criminal defense. She has successfully represented clients in front of federal and state agencies and in private litigation. Dagny Van Der Jagt speaks and lectures in 4 languages fluently. She was born in Poland, raised in Minnesota and Vienna, Austria, and attended the American University of Paris. She immigrated to the United States to obtain her BS in political science from the University of Colorado and Denver University, and JD in 2005 from the University of Denver. Stern College of Law. She also lectures locally and globally on topics of American constitutional law, mental health, and public policy. So that's quite a resume,
Very much so.
Dagny, and welcome to the Hispanic Patriot,
Welcome.
a place
Thank you
where
so much.
we welcome everyone. I have heard you on the radio, and uh, I like what I heard. Let me just say that. I used to live in Douglas County. I would have been in your district, but now I live, as I always say, behind enemy lines in Denver, Colorado. So I do my part here in Denver. Um, so tell us a little bit about yourself and why you have decided to step into this role, because stepping into the role of a district attorney means bearing a significant responsibility for upholding justice within your jurisdiction. It's a position that requires not only extensive legal knowledge, but also an extraordinary commitment to public service, ethical conduct, and effective leadership. So, with that in mind, uh, give us a little bit of background. Tell our audience why you decided to run for this office and what best qualifies you for this position, considering that your opponent is a former district attorney.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me here today. It's an honor to speak to you and also to address your audience. I think I'm uniquely positioned in this day because I'm a legal immigrant myself. 24 years ago, I came to the United States. I did everything legally. I believed in this country and I still do. And I just, over the last 24 years, I did not like I do not like what I see currently. And obviously it has gotten worse. And I have serious concern for my 4 children. 2 of them are almost young adults, 18 and 16. The other ones are 12 and 10. But they would like to stay in Colorado. And I just do not know that Colorado currently and America generally offers the same opportunities of prosperity and just a chance as I was offered 24 years ago. I think we have gotten many things wrong. And if I can step up and contribute maybe a fraction of my talent to serve my community after I have been given so much by this country, then I believe it's my duty. That's the oath that I took when I became a citizen. Part of it, since we're discussing immigration, if you look at the oath, is that you will step up and defend the Constitution when necessary. And I think that time has unfortunately come. And I would love to sit in my splendid isolation. I live and play in rural Douglas County, but I feel called to step into this office and do whatever I can to, again, protect that prosperity, make sure that we have equal application of the law, and that we hold criminals accountable. And that's not what's being done today.
Absolutely. Nick?
Well, I just wanted to say, ma'am, very, very nice to have you on the show. Very much thank you so much. My own family came from Poland. And as you know, we have very long history of constitutionality and liberty. So very much beautiful. So I wanted to ask you then, ma'am, so if you could describe your experiences in the courtroom, those high stakes cases, what do you think it gave you in terms of experience?
Well, so I graduated from the Denver University School of Law. A little bit into my practice, I realized that I think how many people believe attorneys are always in the courtroom. That is not what happens to you as a young graduate with a law degree. You sit mostly in the basement reviewing files.
Yep.
And so I was looking for the quickest way to actually make myself useful in the courtroom because I was just enthralled by courtroom drama and the pursuit of justice. And so I actually was lucky enough to secure a job in my local district attorney's office in this very district. And I was assigned to county court, later district court, also felony filing. And that's where I, let's say, sharpened my skills in the courtroom because the opportunities were abound. Afterwards, I left the district attorney's office and the time was ripe. My brother-in-law, my husband, we all decided that we wanted to form a law firm after gaining enough experience and test ourselves in the real world. And we have tremendously enjoyed the opportunities to basically fetch and secure clients, secure a good outcome for their cases, be it in court, be it in front of administrative agencies. And so over the last 18 years, I've just had a variety of cases that gives me this unique background to be useful in this office. And so let's keep in mind that the elected district attorney in Douglas County alone, the 23rd Judicial District will be Douglas County, Albert, and Lincoln County. We have about 70 employees, give or take, at the end of the split, because this is a new district created by a split. And it is, in very big part, also an administrative and political position, because the elected district attorney, we handle thousands of cases in this jurisdiction. I'm not going to be in court every day. I might be in court in the big cases that are probably exposed to some publicity. In the background, I will be obviously working with the prosecutors to secure that we have a policy that we're following, policy of accountability and swift justice. But this is not for me to be in court all day long. I need to work with our local officials. I need to look at the budget. I need to be accountable to the constituents to make sure every taxpayer dollar gets accounted for and we have the transparency and accountability that we deserve. And I think that is the biggest thing that sets me apart. I don't necessarily need to be on every case. Think about the other 22 jurisdictions in Colorado. Do you see other district attorneys in front of the media commenting about every case? No. And I'll tell you why. Because prosecutors specifically have an additional code of ethics as attorneys. We should not prosecute people in the media. The prosecution happens in the courtroom. So there are additional ethical obligations that make it actually very dangerous for prosecutors to comment on current cases. Yeah. So I don't think that I need to be as public as some prior officials. I think I just need to do a good job to secure the office and be, again, approachable to our elected officials, to my constituents. I don't need to be in the media. I don't need that.
Who would want that anyways?
Yeah, there's work to do.
As an avid watcher of legal shows, because I've always loved lawyer shows for some reason. When I was in college, I took some pre-law. I was going to head towards the legal profession, but then I got sidetracked and ended up doing other things. But my mom always wanted me to be a lawyer. She said I argue a lot, so
my mom told me the same thing.
Well, let me tell you something. I think it's a secret to a great marriage, because both my husband and I are attorneys. We get all the arguments out in court. By the time we get home, nobody wants to argue about making dinner, who has cleaned or didn't clean. It's just
you keep work at work. You keep work at work.
That's right.
Very beautiful. All right.
So, how would you handle a situation where you believe the defendant is innocent, but the evidence points to their guilt?
Well, that is interesting, because isn't that a little bit of a oxymoron?
That's a conundrum,
isn't it? A strange conundrum, yes, too. So I personally, you think I personally would believe that the defendant is innocent, but the evidence points otherwise.
Yes, let's just say that you
situation.
That you have a, your own particular viewpoint on the defendant, and you think that, that they're probably innocent, but you're seeing a lot of evidence that is pointing in the other way. What would your instruction be to that prosecutor?
Well, a good prosecutor, our ethics demands that we seek actually justice, not just a conviction. So that's a huge distinction. So sometimes you might have a great case, right? And it would lead you straight to a conviction. But we also consider, in our plea bargaining process, we consider mitigating evidence as well, and background factors, family factors, to see what is the best and just outcome in this case. And what I mean with the plea bargaining process, out of the thousands of cases that are filed, you might know, and so do your listeners, that only a fraction of those goes to an actual trial or hearing. and the rest of them actually, for efficiency and budgetary reasons, get plea bargains. So you might get a lesser charge that you plead guilty to, and then you start serving a probation sentence, or you get some jail time, some incarceration time, and get released on parole. So again, we try to work with the system to see, do we have a mental health background issue? Do we have just, let's say, a drug addiction, but this is not a key person who is distributing drugs on a massive scale? Is there something that we can tailor so we don't necessarily lock them away and throw away their key, right, to achieve the ends of justice? So a good prosecutor looks at the entire picture. You're not just going after statistics saying, hey, I put 100% of people away. You're also not going after statistics that are necessarily race related, right? Race, like Caucasian white conviction rate would be X compared to, let's say, Black defendants or Hispanic defendants. I think race has nothing to do with that, which I think some of the other prosecutors, again, they use that as a huge decision, right, to interfere in let's say, social status or the status quo. But again, I don't think justice is blind, right? If you look at Lady Justice, justice is blind. We look at the totality of the circumstances, and we should take everything under consideration. And that's what I would do, right? I think my personal feeling, this person might be guilty or not, has really not that much to do with it. I need to look at the evidence. Is it direct evidence, or is it all circumstantial? What are my chances of actually being successful at trial? Am I just wasteful with resources for the taxpayers, right? Can I achieve the ends of justice differently by giving this person a plea bargain? So those are all considerations. It's not.
So you're diametrically opposite of Alvin Bragg, right?
Well, and you definitely want to be, right, a student of criminology. And what we have right now is what we see in Denver, for instance, and other jurisdiction, even Jefferson County, even Arapahoe in the past couple of months and years. There are no consequences whatsoever, right? People get arrested and then nothing happens. They might not even show up for some sort of court procedure.
Yeah,
and I think we need to set it.
We're still waiting here in Denver for some prosecution for the defacement of the state capitol.
Absolutely, nothing happened, right?
Nobody was ever prosecuted for that.
And that causes the breakdown of society, because think of a very simple example. I went shopping with my two little kids, 10 and 12. They have hard-earned money. We walk into a TJ Maxx. They spend their hard-earned $15 on trinkets. And as we walk out, we see a young man carrying racks of clothing and just walking out the store without paying. And security wasn't doing anything about it. And in fact, when we asked security, what are the consequences? The guy said, well, the sheriff doesn't even come out unless it's $5,000 or more. And that's what's happening in Denver, because we were in Denver at that point. Yeah. So what signal are we sending to the next generation? What am I supposed to tell my children? Hey, next time walk in, you feel like grabbing a 6-pack of Coke, grab it, right? You want a donut, grab it. Nobody holds you accountable. That's just a sad world that we live in. And it undermines the chance at prosperity, the competition, the America of fairness and equality that we want to see. People won't work for this if you don't give the right incentive system.
I administered justice at home with my kids.
I couldn't agree more, ma'am. Even in my day job this afternoon, I saw people, all constantly on the, watch for theft. We had people steal, and all you could do is take down their license and ban them from the store. It hurts small businesses, especially, who don't have the same protection. It's the government, who is your position, who is supposed to help the little guy in that sense. So I'm glad to hear that that's definitely something that you understand.
Yes. So I think you inadvertently answered the next question. So take number 5, Nick.
Absolutely. It's like, well, then have you handled cases that include sensitive subjects and potentially vulnerable victims? And if so, how did you handle those cases?
I think you broke up. Try it again.
Oh, my apologies. Everything all right there?
Yeah, you're on now.
Very
Go ahead.
good, very good, very good. So, ma'am, have you handled cases involving sensitive subjects and vulnerable victims? And if so, how did you deal with those cases?
Yes, I did. So those are probably cases that you refer to where there's either a child involved, let's say, who was subject or victim of a sexual assault or some molestation, or also women who were assaulted either by a significant other, boyfriend, husband. So, absolutely, I handled those types of cases, both as a prosecutor and also, interestingly enough, as a defense attorney. So, I think that gives me a very unique perspective what we can do better to train law enforcement to give us the cases that we really need. Because sometimes I'm sitting there with my defendant and I'm thinking, you're getting off really easily because I know the position of the prosecutor, right? And I know exactly why they can't be a little bit stricter or give a harsher sentence because there is some sort of problem with the investigation or how the evidence was handled. So that's sad, right? As defense counsel, I can't really say, "Hey, give him a couple more years," because that's not my job.
Right.
But it gives me a perspective from having been on both sides. What we need to do to make sure that prosecutors have strong cases to prosecute. I should give you some statistics. So, felony cases, those are the more serious charges compared to, let's say, misdemeanors. Currently in our district, 20% of the felony cases filed get straight out dismissed. So, that is a very significant statistic because if you translate that, every fifth case that a law enforcement officer investigates in our district that is a felony, every fifth case straight out gets dismissed. And that is not the dismissal rate that is tied to a plea bargain process. So that's another third of cases, felony cases, that get pled down to lower charges of misdemeanors. So, see, those are the things when I review statistics, I have a very data driven approach. We're wasting resources someplace there because there's only one reason a prosecutor would straight out dismiss a case without prosecution. There has been a fault that doesn't allow us to go forward with a reasonable likelihood of conviction. So
Yeah,
we need to do better. Somebody needs to look into this.
You've got a commitment to do better. That's beautiful.
I'm sure there's been lots of times when things fall through the cracks because somebody messed up, and the system is such that you have to have fairness across the board. So if
Well, and
if
if I
one
might interject, just another interesting bit of information that people in the legal profession follow is there was an expert that prosecutors in the state of Colorado were using to tie DNA evidence to the guilt of a defendant and have obtained hundreds of convictions. Those convictions now will be up for potential appeals or reviews because those hundreds of convictions over the last couple years turns out the expert was data tampering with the underlying data. So each of those cases where we have spent resources, right, to obtain the conviction, and that can affect all of the jurisdictions of Colorado.
sure,
And this person, I understand, is facing potentially criminal charges because of this, because 700 defendants that were potentially innocently put away or without due process, proving that the DNA links them to a homicide or to a rape, because those are the most, let's say, uh, those are the cases where we're mostly using DNA experts
yeah.
to obtain the conviction.
I think I read about that. That's just ridiculous, and there should be severe penalties for somebody doing something like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially
Because
if
the
they're
worst
doing it
thing,
intentionally. If they're doing it intentionally,
yes.
that's even worse
And
because
see,
that
that makes my hair rise, right? Because this is exactly the substance of due process. My campaign slogan is you should be tough, but also fair, because we can never compromise on the due process because the government will always be more powerful with 70,000 laws on every level, municipal, state, all the way to federal levels, that a citizen could be breaking at any point in time, knowingly or not knowingly. And so that's why you need to elect people into prosecutorial positions who are very, very careful how that power gets used.
Very good.
All right, so I want to jump to a sensitive topic because it's on the minds of a lot of people, and especially in your race, because of your opponent's participation in it. But some Colorado law enforcement agencies, primarily sheriffs, are opposed to red flag laws. And some have stated that they will not enforce such unconstitutional laws. What are your views on Colorado's red flag laws, and do you agree or disagree with them as written? And would you enforce those laws?
I believe Colorado's red constitutional and raises serious, serious concerns of due process. And I, as a prosecutor, keep in mind, let's talk about the origins of red flag. Originally, my opponent who drafted it, he's now denying it, but there are many witnesses plus emails that surfaced from the Rocky Mountain gun owners' FOIA request from the Capitol. He actually drafted the initial law. And now he says he doesn't like it, but it's like, well, what do you think happens when you open the door to undermining our due process rights? You, as a prosecutor, should know that you shouldn't change our Constitution to obtain convictions more easily and come into people's homes with basically unsubstantiated warrants because you think they could do something bad. I mean, it reminds me a lot of communist tyrannical regimes, because once the government is at your home, they're not going to just seize your weapons. They're going to see everything else. And what's to prevent them from seeing a stack of cash in your kitchen and saying, oh, in our experience, if you have too many $100 bills, you might be a drug dealer. Let's, confiscate that cash. And then you might have a computer on your kitchen table and they think, well, in our experience, you might as well have child pornography on that computer. Let's just be careful and take it, because while we're debating about thought crimes and hypotheticals, I mean, we're already here to take your guns. Where are we going to stop? And I think preventing government from entering with a warrantless search and seizure into your homes, this is the most basic right that we have under the American Constitution, and it should be protected at all costs. So initially, when the red flag bill was drafted by my opponent, again, I have to underscore that, it only included law enforcement officers that should be doing that and close family members. Well, you give the Democrats a couple of crumbs and all of a sudden the door gets busted down. Now all of a sudden it's teachers, it's the district attorney's office, it's your doctor. And so when does it stop? Like next time you go to King Soopers and you misbehave, the King Soopers store clerk might turn you in for a red flag because you're wearing a MAGA hat. And look where we've gotten since those 5 years, since 2019. This is exactly what the government is after, right?
Yep.
If you're Christian, if you have religious thoughts and any type of Christian beliefs, you're a white supremacist, you're racist, you're crazy Trump supporter, and whatever other slurs they can throw at us. And you're profiled as a possible terrorist. So that is just obscene. And those are exactly the types of people that the government will target, not only in Colorado, but on a federal level. So you're asking me if I, as a district attorney, will go around and knock on people's doors and seize their guns and look what they have at their homes? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Thank you.
I will go after drug dealers. I will go after fentanyl. I will go after people who steal your cars and break into your businesses. That's what we should prosecute, not the law-abiding gun owners.
Thank you. As somebody who's lost a friend to fentanyl and has had their car stolen in this state, I very much appreciate hearing what you're saying, ma'am. Go after the real criminals.
Absolutely. And I think I'm just echoing what I hear all across my district. Look, if you live in Denver, your district attorney might think differently, but then you have on the streets what you have on the streets. I'm here to represent the voters of Douglas County, Elbert County, Lincoln, and myself. I live in rural Colorado. There will be no police officer coming to save me and my 4 children. It's going to be myself for at least 30 minutes fending. So I'm going to do what my voters put me into office to do.
Yep,
Beautiful.
I agree. All right, Nick, go ahead.
Well, ma'am, I wanted to ask, have you ever had to handle any cases involving political or public figures? And how was your experience in that?
Well, I'm not a politician, so I didn't handle any political figures, not that I know of. I handled, let's say, high-profile cases involving people who are, let's say, community leaders, but not high-profile cases. Again, I'm not a politician, and that's what sets me apart also from my opponent, who is a career politician. As soon as he got elected in 2012 for this position, technically, the DA's position is a two-term position. So you can run for 4 years and for another 4 years. And right away in 2013, he started speaking about running for AG. And then in 2018, he actually ran for governor and for attorney general. So those are statewide offices. To me, that amounts to a dereliction of duty. Because if I spend money, effort to get you elected to secure this office, I really don't want to have this office used as a stepping stone for higher office. And that is a pledge that I made to my voters. I have no political aspirations besides securing this office and making sure it remains in good conservative hands. So I'm not pandering to the middle. I'm saying exactly what the voters of this district want to hear, because those are my beliefs, and I think I'm a true reflection of what voters want in this office.
Beautiful.
So you never had a dirty politician that you had to prosecute then?
She lives in a good county.
You live in a good yeah.
I had some police officers back when I was a prosecutor, some police officer cases that, again, I would say are high profile. But that's the other thing I want to put out to you, gentlemen. You know, after you become such an entrenched politician, look, my opponent is endorsed by all sheriffs in this jurisdiction. And here's the thing, there's a reason why the district attorney's office is independent from the law enforcement jurisdictional office, right? The district attorney's office is the top law enforcement officer, but also has a jurisdiction, like a jurisprudence, let's say, definition of its job. And so the fact that all the law enforcement officers, at least the elected sheriffs, are kind of back scratching with my opponent basically drives me nuts. When they were running, he endorsed them, and now he's running, so they're endorsing him back into the same position, and we're going to have almost 2 decades of him ruling over this jurisdiction with all the back scratching. I think people are ready for something fresh. They want law enforcement officers to also be accountable, and that's how we secure that they do the investigation with integrity, because the district attorney's office will be the last stop, right, to kind of review, is everything going according to plan? And again, I back the blue. My husband has actually law enforcement officers in his family. I back the blue all the way.
Me too.
But if there is, right, a law enforcement officer who has not acted with integrity, then I cannot secure that conviction. And I need to make sure, as an elected prosecutor, that I represent my voters and the Constitution. It's just not right to sweep that under the carpet.
Right. And it helps the good cops, your strategy. It helps the good cops.
Absolutely.
So we're up against the clock. So I wanna this is a good segue into this final question for you, and that is, what are your thoughts about what President Trump has been subjected to by partisan and corrupt DAs around the country and the DOJ?
Well, I think the court process will just have to run its course. I am very curious to see the evidence. Right now, it definitely, to me, looks like a lot of lawfare. And that is exactly what I'm concerned about, that our offices are used for political bonus points and political gain. And there's political persecution, which absolutely has no room in a district attorney's office. And I think it undermines what we see with what happens to President Trump. Is it undermines the voters' confidence that the justice system is actually really blind, right? And is not using this just to tie him into multiple lawsuits to make his re-election a challenge. So it's absolutely on my mind. I think it's unfair, but I will hold my breath to whenever there's something released from the courtrooms. Right? We don't get to see all the evidence, but
Yep. Well,
let's see.
you have to be nice. I don't. Every one of those DAs are Soros-backed DAs. Is that a
Mhm,
coincidence? I don't think so.
mhm,
So
mhm,
the whole thing is a sham. It is election interference at its prime, and there is no basis for any of the charges that have been brought against him. It's simply to try to derail his presidential campaign. But you know what? God is in control, and everything they're doing is backfiring because every time they attack him, his numbers grow. And even while
mhm,
he's sitting in a New York City courtroom, when he's out, not in that courtroom, he's out in the streets of New York and getting big time welcomes from the people of New York, which is as
mhm.
liberal a city as you can find. But I have total faith that he's going to come out of this smelling like a rose, and in November we're going to have President Trump back. So that's my position on it, and I know that people in the legal profession have taken different positions, but you know, the one that stands out to me is Alan Dershowitz. He's as liberal as they come, but he's intellectually honest when it comes to describing what's going on with President Trump in all these cases. And I trust his acumen, and also professional Professor Turley out of Georgetown University. Those people are not Republicans, and yet they have been able to uh, outline what's been taking place against President Trump in a very convincing manner, in my opinion. So I have
Mhm.
total faith that all of these cases are going to fall apart, and we're going to have a new
Well,
president in
well,
November.
and to just let you know, right, when you speak to actually actively licensed attorneys, I have to go back to our higher ethical and legal duties that we owe the justice system because we are officers, sworn officers of the court.
Right.
And so it might be perceived as directly undermining the judicial process if some active attorneys would come out, let's say, too aggressively, calling the judges' names or the prosecutors' names, and
No,
it's
I'm
just
not about
we
calling
can't do that,
names.
right? We
I'm
can't do that.
about stating the facts, and the facts are very clear.
But Dan, thank you very much for that professionalism and that
Yes,
strength of character, because I think that really shows people that you're going to always be on the side of justice, no matter where it falls upon. The fact that we believe that our side has the justice most of the time, that's a fun little extra for us, I think. But
yeah.
the fact that you guys are
Mhm.
really, really keeping the straight and narrow path, you have such professionalism. I respect that.
Thank you.
Da-
Professionalism is rare these days.
Dagny, before we let you go, real quick, I wanted to ask you. I was kind of intrigued by some of these questions we didn't get to, but over the past 3 years, um, it's obvious there's been all kinds of corruption and underhanded dealings going on in the judicial system, locally, nationally. What's your overall assessment on the temperature? Like how many more of yous are in the system fighting the good fight? I mean, what kind of hope can you give to the upstanding citizens of Colorado that our fights and our efforts are paying off? How's it looking to you?
I don't want to just be a pessimist. I think America has been through crisis before historically, and we're going to tackle this crisis. I think if nothing else, it shows people that they can't just lean back and go on autopilot, thinking that we things will just turn themselves out okay. That's just not the case. We need to keep fighting. We need to air out the grievances, the criticism, and I think this is how we can right the boat. And the worst thing we can do is be censored, like let's say the Democrats would like us to be. We need to speak out. We need to keep voters informed. They cannot sit back in this election. They need to do their due diligence. And when you see names on your ballot, you need to actually go and do the research. Spend, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour, go to their websites and make sure that you find out as much as you can before you actually check the box just automatically, because that's what it comes down to. And I think that's what we see in this election. You can't just vote for people who've been in office before just because you know them based on the name. They need to be accountable to you and hold their feet to the fire in a couple of years, 2 years or 4 years, when there's another election. Remember what they said, right? And be involved. That's the only way we can right the ship, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Beautiful
Well,
sentiment.
it's been a pleasure having you as our guest this evening. We really appreciate your forthcoming comments and your honesty. I think that's what stands out to me the most. You have uh, unwavering integrity, from what I can tell. So I think
It must be
you
those Polish genes.
you'll make.
Ah, yeah.
Dagny!
There you go.
So
Because
Well,
you-
because
we want to.
we know how quickly we can lose it, and we
Exactly.
lost
How-
it in my family.
We've
So
had
we
to fight
want-
with many times, and now we fight for America.
We want to, extend our gratitude and thanks for coming on. In closing, is there anything you would like to add for our viewers and the voters in the 23rd Judicial District? And how can people find out more about you and your campaign?
So the website is www.votefordagny.com. And so again, for voters in Douglas County, Albert, and Lincoln, it's Dagny for DA. It's already in the name. Dagny and DA, it just goes hand in hand.
That's
So
right.
that's
Look at
all
that.
you need to
DA
remember.
is in the name.
Yay, Dagny. Look at that.
Absolutely. I have fabulous endorsements that are on my website from grassroots business people, voters who are just very generous with their time and effort, but also some politicians who have been around and who have been vetting me. So I'm proud of that. And if you don't live in Douglas County, Albert, or Lincoln, hurry over, because if I get elected, this is going to be the best jurisdiction to live in, live and
Very
play in.
beautiful. Very nice.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us tonight, and we wish you the best in the campaign. And we'll be watching. Very, very interested in seeing how this turns out. But you're an excellent candidate, and I believe the 23rd district would be served very well by you. So, thank you for
Thank
coming
you so
on,
much.
and God
Thank you.
bless. Take
Very
care.
much. Thank you, ma'am.
Dagny.
Very beautiful. You know that, Hugo, actually, as the Poland was the country with the second constitution in the world. You know what was number one? America.
Yep. No, I know a lot about the Polish mentality. They're great people. I love them.
Very beautiful.
They're very much like Americans in the way they think about freedom and opportunity, and they're not shy about stating where they stand either.
Very
So,
beautiful. Just like America. We'll never
Yep.
lose that.
so now, we've got a few minutes left. I know that you wanted to touch base a little bit about your dad, and we want to hear about that and give you the floor. So tell us a little bit about your dad.
Well, thank you very much, Hugo. I really appreciate that. My father passed away 12 years ago today. The 24th has always been, I make the sort of point, the worst day of my life. But every day since, it's taught me a lot about life and death. And the biggest lesson that I had was to not take anything for granted, that anything you think is here today can be gone tomorrow. And if it's a person, you want to make sure that you've gained everything you can from them before they leave. That's the biggest thing. And my father was very, very a beautiful man in making sure that he gave that to me, that he gave me everything he needed before he left. And I'll never forget how his friends reacted. My good friends, my dad's good friends, they showed up kind of piecemeal to the location, to my house where my father passed. And I'll never forget, his best friend literally got down on his hands and knees on the grass and said, "Why God? Why him? Why did he have to die?" Because my dad had no enemies. Everybody had beautiful things to say about him. If anyone wants to go to the Arlington Park Racetrack YouTube channel, there's some tributes to my father there. He was a horse jockey, and I have a picture of him right here, which I keep in my wallet at all times. That was my father right there.
All right, good looking guy.
Thank you, thank you. We say that we have our father's faces, every
Yeah.
member of my family. My
Yeah,
cousin looks exactly like his dad too. It's beautiful.
I
But
can
I'm
see,
lucky. Oh, thank you, Hugo.
see them from.
No, I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I have a family that is so connected and so beautiful. That's something we at the Hispanic Patriot care about so much as family. Because if you only got your mom and you only got your dad, that is one link in the massive chain that you have in this world. So
Yep.
get to know your uncles, get to know your aunts, get to know your cousins, get to know everyone in your family.
I know them all.
There you go.
You know that, as you know, my mom turned 99 yesterday,
God bless her.
and
That's beautiful.
that's and she had a great day. They did a nice little family party for her. She was enjoying herself, drinking wine, and that was her favorite. My brother and I called her on the phone on a video call yesterday, and she was more interested in the food and the wine.
That's how you live to an old age right there, is you enjoy life.
That's right. And, we're blessed to have had her around. And God willing, I will be there next year for number 100.
Big 100. And I'm just thank God, Hugo, because that's one thing I had to deal with when I lost my father, is knowing it's like I was 18 years old. I was literally not even out of high school yet. And I had to contend with that knowledge that I could live with life expectancy 100 years or 50, 70 years without my father. It's never okay. It's always, something's been missing there. And
Sure.
Here's what you do. You become that missing piece.
Yep.
Whoever dies in your life, make sure that you fill their shoes as best you can. That's the way to keep them living. And remember, we're the poor ones stuck on earth. We're the ones with the bad deal here right now. So never feel bad at anyone who escapes this world right here. We're going to be fighting for it. We're going to fight every day that God gives. But
I tell my kids that that I'm going to live a long time, and I'm going to come move in with them, eat their food, watch their cable TV, use their internet, and just torture them.
Torture them with your character, good humor. You know what I mean? Being around you is never a torture, Hugo. I'll say that for certain.
So yeah, it's a great thing to have your mom around for that long. I know a lot of my friends lost their mothers a long time ago, and
I'm lucky to have mine still. Best mom ever. Absolutely.
So she's the matriarch of the family, and she's tough as nails. I mean, she doesn't. That's where I get it from. She doesn't take anything from anybody, and when she says something, people listen.
That's the way to be.
And that's and she does it in love, but she's not one to shy away. She's no wallflower, I can guarantee you that.
we need more of that. Speak your mind. The audience, I want to speak your mind. That is how you stay free. You stay free up here before you stay free anywhere else.
Yep. In my family, when I go to Peru, I'm the gringo in the family, and now my brother has joined me in that class because he's lived here for a long time as well. So we're the two gringos, and everybody else, is paisanos. And
I'll come with them. They'll see how bad my Spanish is, and then they'll say, "Oh no, hey, you're one of us. What were we saying?" Oh.
Yeah, my brother-in-law loves to make fun of my Spanish at times, but I make fun of his English. So
there you go. Tit for tat, ain't too bad like that.
I said, he's a retired professional soccer player.
Wow.
He was a soccer player, a goalie, and
nice.
Married to my younger sister. They've got they've got a daughter who married, and now they have a grandson. And but we got a great family. I mean, we're all over the place. I keep finding out more and more about the Chavez Rays.
I believe it.
They're
I went to New York one time with my dad racing, and we just ran into one of his cousins, totally on it. They're like, "Hey, did you say your name was this? And my name was this. Was this your dad? Oh my goodness, And we just found out this guy was our cousin. We're
yeah.
like, wow.
My brother-in-law actually, and my sister, they were either in Miami or somewhere, and they went to this restaurant, and they got to talking, and the waitress, seemed Latina to them, and they asked her where she was from, and he said Peru, and they said, "What's your last name?" And ended up being a cousin. And but I have cousins all throughout the U.S. I mean, I got one up in Illinois. Actually, he was in Illinois. He's in Iowa now.
Thank God.
Right across the state line. He's in Iowa, but he's a veteran.
Beautiful.
He was an Army veteran. I think he was in for almost 30 years.
Beautiful.
Um,
Real veteran, right? That's amazing.
Relatives in Dallas, Miami, New York. I mean, I think we have some in Spain too now that I was told some of them moved to Spain. So.
Oh, I believe it. Look at that. And I want to have a message for our audience. You have cousins. I had a friend of mine tell me, it's like, well, only brown people have cousins. I said, no, that is wrong. You just don't know who they are. Yeah. Go find your family, people. Yeah. I want to stress that as much as I can. Go find your family. You have them. They're around. And I'm sure, I can promise you, you will love what you find.
It's amazing what you can find through an ancestry check.
There's so many ways to know your family nowadays.
They're everywhere. And I've been on ancestry.com, and I've gotten contacted from third, fourth cousins, because they pop up when you match DNA to a certain point, And
yeah.
So I've done a couple of those, and I've got my DNA history all the way back to the beginning. And my wife always told me, she says, "You have African in you." I said, "Yeah, we probably do."
Yeah, and everywhere.
Sure
Arab,
enough,
African, Asian, everywhere.
My record came back, and sure enough, I had like 2% African in there. And,
well, and Peru actually has a big Japanese population as well, big Asian population. One of the biggest presidents was a Japanese guy.
Fujimori, yeah. We don't.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't have any Asian connections. I had most of my connections are from Europe, Africa. Iberian Peninsula is the biggest match for me.
And look at us. We're all here. Dagny is from Poland. I think her last name is actually Flemish, from Belgium, if I'm not mistaken, for her husband. So we have a beautiful
Van Der Jagt sounded a little Scandinavian to me, either Scandinavian or Dutch.
So when you find that,
I was thinking Dutch.
Yep, Peter is correct. Absolutely. When you say Van, that's the Dutch, but in the Jags is it's like hunter. It's like Jaeger to a certain degree, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So like there's like Belgium army units, and they have that's that name. Yeah. Find your ancestry. Find where you come from, because where you came from, that is what you're contributing to the United States of America. That's what I want to stress 100%. We need every single one of you, and to know who you are. Know what you're bringing to the table with pride.
Well, we're the melting pot for a reason.
Exactly. Come melt with us.
But
Dutch surname. That's what it says.
But we're the melting pot that's supposed to assimilate,
exactly,
and not segregate, and that's
because
that's
what they say. We're the difference, but like Canadians versus Americans. Canadians will say they're mixed salad. We're the melting pot.
It's very true.
And that's good. Like the fact that we're the melting pot. We don't want to segregate.
No, it's because you don't get to be your full self if you have to be a representation. That's what the liberals say. Oh, we want representation. No, we want something beyond, something greater. That's all of us. The equality that the liberals demand, there's a better value. It's harmony. Whatever your voice is, you got a place in the choir of America.
All right. Well, In closing, I think we have, or the 23rd Judicial District has a great candidate there.
I agree.
I think she's going to do well. She won in her district assembly. She won unanimously.
Look at that.
And that's hard to do.
Very hard.
There's the hope right there. The Trump story and Van Der Jagt, like that's.
Yep.
Americans are coming together from all sectors.
We're praying for her, because I don't think that her opponent is worthy in that regard. I hope the voters down there put her in, and that she does a really good job in that new district. So
very nice. Take out the red flags, put in red, white, and blue.
Yep. And in closing, I'm working on a really engaging guest for next week. I got to confirm it, but it's going to be a guest that is tied to the January 6th event. In fact, he actually served some time in prison.
So stay tuned for that, people.
And so if I can book him, I'm going to have him on next week. It's that information that I sent to you guys a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you saw it, you got to read it, but read up on his story. It's really interesting. So anyway, we're out of time. Thank you to our great audience. We hope everyone enjoyed our guest tonight. Get out and vote. Get out and work for the candidate of your choice. And we look forward to another great show next week. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Thanks for like, subscribe too.
Amen.
Like and subscribe. Follow, share.
Like and
please.